Hi everyone. So I'm back today with the LCHF recipe that is by Dr. Uma Swaminathan with her cookbook LCHF Veg Recipes, and we're doing onion tomato Gothsu today. So I'm gonna go ahead and start layering, and then I will share the recipe when we're waiting for the whistles. So I'm gonna start with about 3 teaspoons of water. That's just for the base layer. And then I'm going to add the flavor and the fat for this, which is the 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. I'm using cold pressed sesame oil, and that's probably the best and the most flavorful one that you can use. And then I'm going to add a base of about 10 curry leaves at the bottom. This is to prevent burning. So the curry leaves add a good layer, so we're not dealing with, since we are using very less water here, that's what I'm putting at the bottom. And then I'm going to put 1 cup of onion, and this I'm using, I always like to add a disclaimer that I am making this in the US, in Dallas, Texas, so some of the vegetables that we get here have a lot of water content. So I'm using shallots, which is the closest cousin you would find to the Indian onion. I'm not using red onions, they're really too pungent, and then white onions or yellow onions are too sweet. So the shallots that I'm using are very close in flavor to the Indian onion, but do remember that the water content is very high, so that's why my water layer is also very less for this recipe. So 1 cup of onion and then 1 cup of tomato. I'm going to put this in a bullseye format, which if you've been following some of these recipes, it's the onion in the middle and then the tomato at the side, and this really helps the onion caramelize, and the tomato tends to, because it releases a lot of water, it tends to cook better as well. So I have 1 cup of onion and 1 cup of tomato, and then I'm gonna add about 4 teaspoons of tamarind paste. So you can use Opos tamarind paste, or you can use regular tamarind that's been soaked in hot water. And I'm using Opos tamarind paste here. So I have about 4 teaspoons. I'm adding a little extra because, again, the tomatoes that I get here, they're not very flavorful, as in the sourness is a little less. So I'm adding a little extra tamarind paste to compensate for that. But if you follow the recipe according to her book, it's just 4 teaspoons of tamarind paste. And then 2 teaspoons of sambar powder. Once again, I'm using vattakoramba podi, which is very similar, but again, the flavor is slightly different. Similar to sambar powder, but you can use sambar powder or vattakoramba podi. I like the flavor of vattakoramba podi in the Gothsu, so that's what I'm putting here. And then 1 teaspoon of salt. Here, I'm going to measure it out. 1 teaspoon of salt. And that's it. And you can add a little bit of jaggery if you'd like. I'm not doing that here, but once again, that depends on the flavor of the tomatoes. So in this case, as I said, the sourness is less, so my tamarind is a little extra, but I'm not adding jaggery. I'm going to taste it later and see if I need some jaggery. Now I've just cooked the LCHF pongal, so my cooker has just been lightly washed, and I'm going to cook this on high for 2 whistles. I may go for 1 extra whistle because the water content is high in my tomato and onions, so I prefer to do that. But again, the actual recipe calls for 2 whistles. You may want to open it and then see if it's cooked well enough, and then add another whistle if you'd like. So I'll quickly share the recipe here while that is cooking. I don't know how many of you can see this, but so what I did was I took a 2-liter magic pot. I added 3 teaspoons of water, 2 teaspoons of sesame oil, and I used cold pressed sesame oil, 10 curry leaves, that is my buffer or the base layer, 1 cup of onion, I used shallots, as I said, 1 cup of tomatoes. I used vine ripened tomatoes. Those are the real ripe ones compared to using really large tomatoes or the Roma tomatoes, which don't have a lot of flavor. 4 teaspoons of tamarind paste. I added a little extra to compensate for the tomatoes flavor. 2 teaspoons of sambar powder or vatakorambu podi. 1 teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to cook this for 2 to 3 whistles. The original recipe calls for 2 whistles. I might go for 3 because I know that's not going to really burn the recipe or burn the dish. The water in my tomatoes is a lot higher. Now, something very quickly about the cookbook. Dr. Uma Swaminathan's recipes follow the low carb, high fat recipe, regimen, diet plan, whatever you might want to call it. She gives you a menu plan by day, so there's lunch and dinner recipes and as well as a shopping list, so it's pretty well organized. And she uses a lot of shredded vegetables as a substitute for rice. So there is shredded bottle gourd or lauki, shredded cabbage that she uses instead of using rice, because that cuts down a lot on the carbs. And she uses fat, or a good fat, like coconut oil or sometimes ghee. She's also gives you some vegan substitutes in case you're not, you don't want to use ghee or you don't want to use butter. You can use coconut oil, etc. But she uses that in her recipes, and they are given by, as I said, a shopping list and menu plan, so you can follow that. A lot of her recipes are for the measurements are for 2 people. So if you want to scale up, you'd have to do that accordingly. You can still cook that in your 2-liter magic pot, but you will find that these recipes are great for 2. That's my first whistle. I'm going to wait for 2 more. But I can smell the sambar powder / vatakorambu podi while it's cooking, so that's a good sign. And it's not burning. You want to make sure that you are near your cooker while the whistles are coming through, so that you know if it is burning or if it needs to cook for 1 more whistle. That's my second whistle. And then also I wanted to mention that the salt I used was Himalayan pink salt. Again, that adds minerals, so it is the healthier salt that you want to add as compared to iodized salt or any other. That's my third whistle. I'm going to shut it here, and then I'm going to release pressure. Open it. Oops, sorry. Okay. Okay, so that looks. Okay, you can see there's a little bit of water content, which as I keep stirring, it cooks in its own heat. So I'm gonna keep stirring it while it cooks further. And then what I'm going to do is add a little bit of bottle tadka to this, and that'll complete your dish. You can also add some cilantro. You can add more curry leaves if you like. I have already added curry leaves, so I think I'm going to leave it. You can also add a dollop of sesame oil on top, because that adds a good flavor. So I'm going to just add the tadka now, and then we should be done. I'm going to actually add the sesame oil first, and then okay. So that pretty much finishes this dish, which is the onion tomato gothsu. As I said, you can go for one more whistle if you'd really like to make it caramelized. You can also just close this and let it be and cook in its own heat for a little while. But for the most part, I know I can smell it that it is cooked. So do check this out and give me your feedback once you follow it. Thank you.